Hello there, my name is Adam Forbes. I'm the host of the Corporate Escapology podcast and the author of Corporate Escapology, the book. Today, my guest is Sarah Manley. Sarah spent 20 years working in various marketing roles for some really big companies in the medical devices and healthcare sector. And when she decided to leave the company a few years ago, she took some time out to reflect on what she would do next. And the thing that kept coming back to her again and again was her experience as an introvert in a leadership role. She's now set up a coaching business and she has written a book called The Quiet Catalyst, and it's available this week in all good online bookstores. So let's meet Sarah now and hear about her experience as an introvert through that corporate career and what she's taken and packaged up to then turn into a book and to a coaching offer that she can make to other clients. Let's meet Sarah now. Hello, Sarah. It's great to have you with me today on the Corporate Escapology podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Really excited to have the conversation with you today.
Great. Me too. So let's start with a bit of background. So your experience in corporate life, you spent a long time in marketing, a variety of roles in marketing. Tell me a bit about what made you start. What did you always have a plan to have a corporate career, work in big companies? Where did marketing come from in your story?
Sure. So no big plan. That's for sure. I really live with the theory of having one step at a time. I'm really not a person who has a big plan or a big goal. So I guess where to start goes back to university days. I actually studied geography. Which was always my favourite subject at school. I loved the environmental side, so I really leaned into that and pursued that. And then the honest truth is, as a geography graduate, you could be a teacher or a researcher, and I didn't really want to go down those paths. And I was quite attracted to the different graduate programs that existed. And this is around like 2002, something like that. Mm-hmm. Most of those grad programs, you needed a business degree. So off I went and did a business degree and I got a master's degree in marketing. And then out of that, I managed to then get in one of the grad programs, which is with Stryker, my first employer. So yeah, really no big plan, no big intention to do that, just one step at a time and kind of fell into it in some ways. But yeah, like with most things in life, I think you end up where you're supposed to be at the right time.
You know, and you then spent, nearly 20 years, I think, working in a variety of roles. So, but was it always pharmaceuticals, health, medical kind of related? Was there a sort of theme there? And why that? What sort of drew you there?
Yeah, so again, happy coincidences. It was very much medical devices, medical nutrition, and it started off after I'd finished my master's, going to one of these recruitment fairs. I think still happen, I'm not sure, but back in like 2003, that was all going on. And there's everybody there, you know, the big Mars and Unilever and so on. And I actually went and did some of those assessment centres, you know, doing all the tests and the presentations and stuff. Yeah. And I got quite far with a few, but never really found the click to do that. And then Stryker, which is a big American orthopedics company. Most people know them for the ER beds. When ER used to be TV, Stryker beds used to flash through the emergency room. And just had a great conversation with the guy who was the business unit director at the time. Great conversation about the value of bringing marketing into healthcare. At the time, they were very much a sales-led organization. And they were looking for some fresh thinking, some fresh ways of doing when it came to marketing. So they saw the opportunity, I think, of a bright new young grad to kind of bring in that fresh flavour. And it was phenomenal, actually. You know, having had a geography degree, a marketing master's, and then having the opportunity to sometimes be in operating theatres with surgeons and surgical teams talking about what was going on in the operating. It was mind-blowing at the age of 24. So really amazing experiences. And I think that side of things sometimes teaches you what's really important in life. There's no patient on the table right now. It's not so bad. Really, again, happy coincidence, just kind of meeting the right people, following the breadcrumb trail, very much my philosophy of life, that got me into healthcare, and happy to say I always really enjoyed that. Even when times got pretty tough, as we'll talk about it as well. As a quieter person in the corporate space, my why was always because of healthcare, and because you can have that unbelievable impact, even as a marketeer, on the patients, on the healthcare professionals, on that whole ecosystem.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Because now, of course, we're so driven to find purpose, but actually, working in a field like that, even in a marketing in that, you were able to connect with something deeper than just the job itself, but to the end user that was going to benefit from that. And I also really like what you just said about those opportunities, because we can glorify entrepreneurism, startups, and various social enterprise things, but corporates do give you these great opportunities, because to get in, like as you say, to get into to a ward like that, and to be able to operating room, to be able to see these experiences that I suspect would only happen if you were a really big player. Could you get give those opportunities to your staff, and that gives you competitive edge individually, but also as a corporate, as a company too, doesn't it? And those sorts of experiences, did you notice those throughout too, that you were getting access to things that would have been more challenging if you'd been in a much smaller company, or been independent and on your own?
Totally. I think so much of what I was doing in healthcare, you need the credibility, you need that size and scale and relationship. So I think working in the corporate space gives you that, because you can introduce yourself as, I'm Sarah from I'm Sarah from Philips. So certainly it opens doors in that way. And I know of people who've left those larger organizations to set up on their own in similar spaces, and they retain some of that credibility, but the door isn't always quite as easy to continue to open, because the organization is then questioning, well, who is this person who used to be from that? So definitely heaps of experiences that I would never ever have had the opportunity to do by myself. Other experiences would have come up, of course, but to get that kind of access, exposure, connection was really down to the size and scale of the organizations I was working for, I think.
Yeah, and I think, you touched on that key word there, that credibility. You basically inherit that credibility when you go out without really having the, you don't really have much evidence of that credibility at that time. You're relying off the company's credibility to give you access into things, and you ride that, don't you, for a long time through a career. And so yes, you changed you moved to other organization. What was behind those moves there? What were you looking for there that hadn't been in Stryker, for example, that pushed you to and others?
Yeah, well, again, happy coincidence. I feel that's going to be the theme for the conversation. We at the time when I started in Stryker, I was living in Newbury, and my husband and I wanted to move to London. We were 24, 25, 26 at that time. We want to go and live in London. And so we decided to up sticks and move. And of course, those days, remote work, hybrid work was not a thing. So you went there, you can't be commuting 40, 50 miles a day, and that just wasn't going to work. So at that point, I decided to move on. But with really positive memories and really great foundations from those first early years. And then after a short spell in a PR agency, I went to Philips to work in their consumer lifestyle team with the Avent brand, so baby feeding. And here again, I was working with healthcare professionals, marketing to midwives, health visitors, and then later on, also working with some pediatricians, child feeding specialists to help design the products as well. So really bringing that kind of outside-in knowledge into the product design as well. And then weirdly, what happened was Avent was bought by Philips, a Dutch company. This would be about 3 or 4 years in. And they said, hey, Sarah, we'd love you to move to Amsterdam, to the headquarters. I don't want to move to Amsterdam. I just bought a house or a flat in London. Why would I want to be in Amsterdam? So unfortunately, my role got made redundant at that time. And then I found this really cool job in nutrition. Then about 5 years later, having worked for Nutrition in London, they said, hey, Sarah, we'd love you to move to Amsterdam to take on this new role. So there comes a point when you have to listen to the universe, right? So,
there's something in Amsterdam going on.
So we decided at that point, okay, let's switch on, let's stick. And that's when we moved to Amsterdam, which is like 2016. Yeah.
How was that? Big change.
Amazing. Yeah, huge change. So we'd lived in London for about 11 years by that time, if I remember well. But it was great. It was super cool. In the end, I think we were there for about 7 years. We got the whole COVID experience over there as well, which is very different. But yeah, and to ride a bike properly, finally, once and for all. And it's super interesting, I think, to live and work in a different country. I hadn't appreciated how different it was going to be. It's just over that bit of water, right? It's Northern Europe, it's the same. But the way of thinking about life and work in the Dutch is very different. Yeah. It made me realise how wound up tight we are, especially in London, but in the UK in general. And there I would say people really live first and work second. There's a different mentality about work-life balance, which I learned a lot from, I have to say, and I really try and incorporate some of that still, both in my corporate life and now in my entrepreneur life. So small things like today, it's been really sunny, and in Amsterdam, when the sun comes out, everyone is outside. Everyone will find a way to work outside, meet friends in a cafe outside, everything else. So today, I've been trying to work outside as much as possible. Whereas, in my old London life, you wouldn't do that. It would just be head down, focus, get things done, and pray it's still sunny when I leave work. So the small things like that just really adjusted my mindset. Nutrition is the medical nutrition part of Danone. Most people think of Danone as like yogurts and water. With this really interesting medical nutrition part that I was part of until the last year when I came out and I was working in the infant formula space for about a year or so.
Okay, so what happened then? So you were in Amsterdam. What did you do next?
So coming out of Amsterdam was a personal choice. So we'd lived in Amsterdam, like I said, about 7 years, I think. And we'd had Brexit, we'd had COVID, and the world had changed completely. And suddenly this little bit of water felt a very long way away from home. So we decided to move back to the UK, and Danone were very generous and said, we're happy for you to keep your job and live and work from the UK. At the time, I had a team in Singapore, I had a team in Amsterdam, and doing thumbs up, who were wonderful. That's why my thumb is up. A team in Singapore, a team in Amsterdam, close colleagues to work with on a daily basis in Australia. So it didn't really matter where I was, to be honest. And then I was commuting back and forth to Amsterdam kind of every 2, 3, 4 weeks, just depending on the agenda. And I was doing that for about a year, I think, So I got a good taster of commuter life, which is not so easy.
A bit further than Newbury to London.
Yeah. And, so at that point, we were living up in Nantwich in Cheshire, lovely town, but, it takes me an hour and 20 minutes to get to Manchester Airport. You got to fly. So, it takes a whole chunk of time. So it wasn't uncommon that I was getting home at midnight, 1 a.m., get up the next day for calls to Singapore at 7 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, it was a little bit testing, let's say, but you learn a lot about yourself and your capacity and your capabilities in that time. After about a year and a bit of that, so this would be April last year, there was a organisational restructure, and my role got made redundant. And so I was looking at other opportunities in the Danone company to see what might be possible. Again, in healthcare, in sustainability. So going back to the geography roots and seeing what else is possible there. But trying to do it from my location, everything was in Paris, in Amsterdam. And I said, honestly, I can't keep going with this commuter life. It is a flipping lot, to be honest. So that's when we kind of decided, okay, it's my time to part ways and put this down. So yeah, that's already just over a year ago. So it's blue.
Yeah, wow. So yeah, I mean, there's so many things I want to talk to you about today, but like, tell me how you were feeling about that experience. You know, you'd only known big corporates since you'd graduated or graduated your masters. You'd only known these big companies. So what did it feel like to not have one of those laid out for you and you know, in a sense of being like the road is planned for you for at least for the next few years?
Yeah. I was really excited, actually. Really excited. I still get that excitement when I think back and I talk about it. At the time, I really decided, right, I'm going to have a rest. You know, I'm really going to take 4 to 6 months to get towards the end of 2023 and just see where I am and have a bit of a think of, like, who am I now after 20 years of corporate career at the age of 42? Who am I? What do I like? What do I enjoy? How do I want to spend my time? So I was just quite curious, actually, like, how is this going to go? And I did have some conversations with a couple of headhunters, recruiters about specific roles, which is always very flattering. You know, people hear that you're available and you get some nice calls. Hey, come and have a chat with us. And on paper, they should have been just the right role. On paper, they should have been everything. You know, nice job, ticking all the boxes. And I couldn't get excited about them. I couldn't get a kind of momentum or energy. So I was doing and saying all the right things in the conversations, but I'd come away and just be a bit flat. So that was really interesting data for me to kind of experience, like, what's going on there? So I said, okay, it's not for now. So just, you know, keep those things simmering away, but not for now, and see where it goes. And also because I'd already started training as a coach, but even before I left, I was doing it as a bit of an energy-giving kind of project in some ways. I've always enjoyed coaching. I was receiving a lot of coaching as well from my peer group and so on. So that really helped me to explore during that time what was going on, actually. And I think this is the key. I think a lot of people go through the process of leaving corporates in quite a lonely way, whether they're redundant, their roles made redundant, or they're choosing to step out for some other reason. I think it can be quite lonely. You have lots of conversations with connections, but there's always those things you don't share with prospective clients, prospective collaborators, those sorts of things. But with a coach, you can just go and share everything. So I'm very grateful for that, actually. It was kind of an added bonus of training to be a coach that I also received a lot of coaching, and it really helped me hugely in that time. Hugely.
That's great. And I think another thing I was thinking when you were saying, in fact, I thought you were going to go down that route was, you know, if you had just taken one of those jobs or, you know, or you'd gone looking for a job, a replacement to the corporate job, you wouldn't have necessarily had the space, and, you know, mental space to really think about what you wanted. And I suspect a lot of people, that's how they just roll like that. You just go into the next job and you don't have that step away from your current world to say, what are the good bits about this that I want to keep? What are the bits I really don't want again? You're just working very sort of incrementally, and there's a risk of ending up in a job that isn't going to serve you as well, and you may cope, but actually what you've done is by taking a step back and then, as you say, having a lot of support and kind of inquiry about why you feeling the way you feel, and it being encouraged and you feeling supported, you can walk into that uncertainty and not feel like there's something wrong here, and I have to retreat back to what I know, but actually you can step into it and sit with it for a bit longer than maybe other people have allowed themselves. And then it opens up other avenues for you. And I guess that's what I really want to talk to you about now, really, is like, what was next for you? So you mentioned the coaching. What was the, and you said that lovely phrase, which I've always really liked, red thread. What was the sort of red thread going through all of that thinking you were doing that made you come to a kind of conclusion and a sense of where you were heading next?
Yeah, sure. So I think the red thread was really around curiosity, just exploring things, to be honest. Nothing more special than that. As I said, I'd started coach training before my role was made redundant, so about a quarter before, something like that. And my natural style as a leader was very much a coaching kind of approach. So things just click for me when I'm coaching. I have to say, it's really a happy place for me. I get a lot of energy from it. I really enjoy working with people in that kind of deep, supportive way. And I think, however I started exploring things during summertime last year, it just kept coming back in the same circles. I was making new connections and they were telling me, we've seen you coach, we've really enjoyed coaching with you. And it just kept coming back that there was this reoccurring theme, reoccurring message. Whatever I was exploring, it came back to coaching time and time again. And then I always knew as well that I wanted to write something. And it really started in about July last year. I signed up to go on a writing retreat because it was a bit like, well, now or never, I've got time to do these things. I can take, several days and go and do these, which I would never have the opportunity, or I'd never give myself permission to go and do it before. So I kind of had a bit of a brainstorm to myself at some point. And worked with a peer coach to help me through this as well. What do I actually want to write about now? I didn't know. I just knew I had something to write, but what was it going to be? So that all kind of kicked off in July with this writing, walking, yoga retreat. And then the kind of coaching and writing just started to dovetail together and became kind of one red thread together to then finally get to the book and then launching the coaching business. So it's all happened quite quickly in some ways, but it really has just been that one step at a time, following the next thing, just being curious, making new connections, taking on board what people say, filtering plenty of it out. Not all advice and good advice, of course. And just having fun with that. That's the biggest thing that I experience, and it's kind of my own temperature check or my own filter for things. Is it fun? Then if yes, keep doing it. If it's not, then you're probably not going the right way.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I do think, you, and I speak for myself as well, incredibly privileged to have this opportunity like this, because of course most people don't. They have to just get out and get work. They don't have that luxury of stepping back and just, like I said, just sort of sitting with it and hearing the thoughts and feedback and ideas, and then just working out where to go. They just need to get into a job quickly and some money to pay the bills. So it's a massive opportunity. But equally, it's such a massive opportunity. You don't want to waste it by jumping too quickly into anything and potentially missing something that is going to be much more productive, much more useful, much more where you can access that kind of flow and that joy that, it sounds like you're getting from the coaching and the writing you're doing. But there was a theme through both of them, and you've mentioned this word many times, and people will be able to see it on the screen there, this word quiet. Well, there's the other word catalyst, which we can come to, but this word quiet was one of the reasons why you and I started talking, and one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on this podcast, because coaching is a well-trodden path for people coming out of corporate careers, because as you say, they've tend to have done quite a lot of it. They've got really good experience, often with leadership and with through leadership with leaders and with people in their organizations. And so, and one of the things that I want with Corporate Escapology is for people to not think of these options as boxes, but instead of long spectrums of things. So instead of thinking coaching as a box, which you might immediately start thinking of as sort of a leadership coach or executive kind of coach, and think, oh, that's not for me, therefore coaching isn't. I want them to think about spectrums, and your kind of coaching is quite a different coaching. you're going after a particular type of coachee, of a customer here that is tends to be quite introverted, tends to be quite quiet.
I think, what drew me to work with that kind of individual is it's me. It's really who I am. So people who know me well, when I talk about launching the Quiet Catalyst as a business and the book to go with it, so, well, that is you. That's how you've lived your life. That's how you've done your work. That's who you are. And so it's really about helping people who I now feel I could support, having had that 20 years of experience, that would have struggled with some of the things that I struggled with in the corporate world, of not being the loudest person at the table, not being the first person to speak up, not being the best networker, not always being the best presenter, and certainly not the best person at speaking off the cuff about things. And there were big times in my career when I really struggled with trying to fit a mold that I thought you needed to be successful. And it's pretty exhausting that you're always dialing up your energy and trying to be something you're not. So the point was really about, how can I have a bit of a rallying cry for introverts to say, it's okay to be you. Actually, it's okay to be you. You can do all of these amazing things as a team member, as a leader, as a director, as a whatever it is you want to be. You can absolutely do that in your own quiet way. You can do it in an authentic way that doesn't overstretch your energy and exhaust you, which is the number one thing I hear from introverts. I just go home and I'm exhausted from doing all of the, super energized stuff. You don't need to fake it. You can just be you. So I really wish I had somebody 15, 20 years ago who told me that and had said that and had encouraged me, coached me, mentored me. So the whole thing was really designed around, given that 50% of the population are just half the people out there who are probably struggling with this and haven't realized it or don't dare to talk about it or feel less than in some way. So, just putting a light on it and helping people to understand it and work through it, either as introverts themselves or as extroverts who can be allies, supporters, maybe have quiet people in their team that they're not sure how to get the best from them. So, really helping to change a bit the conversation around introversion and what it takes to be successful, I think.
It might be an oversimplification that because the introvert does tend to be more kind of reflective and thinking, that therefore they're more risk averse because they may have actually considered the risks, rather than the extrovert who is, gung-ho walking into high risk. Now, these are big stereotypes, I know, but I'm interested in your view on that. So the attitude to risk, which is so key to the idea of leaving what you know and doing something quite different like you've done. Where do you sort of feel like risk fits with that introvert extrovert spectrum?
Yeah. I think it's the topic of risk I agree with, and I think maybe I'd express it slightly differently, which is more about how quickly somebody is like to act, so how impulsive somebody might be versus how reflective. So I take the point around, generally extroverts get their energy from external sources. So the more doing and action and impulse there is, the more energy that person gains. It's very attractive to do. Whereas the introvert, actually, in terms of even brain chemistry, it's not just a preference, but it's really brain chemistry, gets quite overwhelmed by too much of that stimulus. So is more likely to think things through, as you say, reflect, consider before deciding and acting. I think when it comes to, leaving a corporate space and so on, it's a really interesting one, because I don't know if I would say that truly introverts are more risk averse, less impulsive, yes. But I think it can be, depending on the scenario as well, which, is a kind of cop-out. It depends, Adam. But I think if somebody is, their role is made redundant and they kind of have to go and consider these options, could be the case that the quieter, more reflective people might, if they have the opportunity financially to do it, might take that time to really think about, okay, what is right for me now? Where do I want to go? Rather than impulsively, well, I've had these 3 headhunter calls and I'm going to go here. I don't know. I'm hypothesizing. I don't know. It's possible.
I suppose one of the big things is that if that introvert does decide they want to leave, particularly if they want to leave to do something by themselves, then the dreaded word sales is likely to come up. And that is not always, again, not exclusively, but not always a comfortable territory for introverts to be salespeople. At least the people I've spoken to thought about leaving. That's one of the things. Actually, it's one of the things extrovert people dread too, to be honest. But I do think an extrovert may just feel like either they've got the network that they could just sort of like go after, or they've got enough kind of like presence to just go and sort of push through it.
Sure.
Where an introvert might be, more thoughtful and maybe fearful. I don't know. But I mean, I again interested on your thoughts there, because I think sales is one of the things that does put people off, coming out of something that they know where they're not in a sales role to suddenly jump into that. It can be quite intimidating.
It is intimidating, I think. Even having worked as a marketeer and worked hand in hand with sales teams, it's very different marketing and selling a business than it is yourself in your own services. I'm a fan of reframing these things. So, I don't sell things. I have conversations with people about how I can help them. And maybe that sounds cheesy, but it really helps me actually. That instead of thinking, gosh, I need to find 10 people to sell to on it, I put my energy into who would I love to have a conversation with to find ways of supporting them and helping them, or vice versa. I mean, sometimes I'm surprised that the conversation I have and I think I'm going to offer them something, they actually find something to offer me, and it's going to have a mutual synergistic opportunity. So the other thing I would say is I think there's probably no better time in history for an introvert to do this, to be very honest. With social media, LinkedIn, yes, there's definitely some benefit in doing some face-to-face networking, but I'm not doing that every day. I can do plenty of things by reaching out, mostly through LinkedIn, to be honest, and just finding, the next connection. Again, it's a bit the breadcrumb trail, finding the next person. And very few people say no. If you say, I'm working in this space, I notice you do that. Would you be open to having a call to share experiences?
Yeah.
People are also running their own businesses and running in their own space and would love to connect and have a conversation.
Yeah, I totally agree. Often glad to, that somebody has done it first. I think, so I totally agree with you. The time has never been better because like LinkedIn makes it easier, but also the sort of, that there's a low friction to have a Zoom call for somebody. Okay, what am I going to waste half an hour of it if it doesn't go anywhere? And we both say goodbye and probably know we're not going to speak to each other again. But it's like minimal. It's not like it was pre-COVID where you'd have had to travel into the nearest city, say London or whatever, to go and speak to somebody. I mean, there's an awful lot of pressure on you to actually try and make success out of something like that. Whereas the barriers have come right down. So I totally agree with you. And I'm pretty introverted too. I actually love, in fact, I had the last 3 weeks I've been traveling with a client, and I like the last day I wanted to just like hide under the desk away from everybody else, and I'm back in my office and it just feels absolutely blissful. I know I'll go back to it, but I love the fact that I can make a business work, and I feel like I'm playing to strengths, and the technology enables me to play to strengths in a way that 5 or 10 years ago would have been much harder, and certainly reaching much harder too.
So definitely.
So the book then, you didn't just do the coaching, but you've actually written a book. I mean, we need to celebrate. Of course, there's a little bit of pointing back at myself, but it's a big achievement writing a book. I mean, 50,000 words, pretty, I guess, around that sort of volume of words. You've written, you've synthesized lots of things to actually write something that's going to help people. And it's imminently out, isn't it? In fact, by the time the podcast comes out, it will be out. So tell us about the book. What are your hopes for it? What did you find different from what you expected? Where's your energy around the book now?
I'm so excited about it now. As a fellow writer, you have this roller coaster of like, this is amazing. What the heck am I doing? I'm really on the high right now. And so I got my proof copies on Friday. So
hey, let's see. Let's see. You've got a copy.
Yeah, here we go.
Come on, you've got to plug in this now.
Yeah, so got them on Friday. And yeah, when you kind of finally hold it in your hand, like, oh my gosh, it's a real thing. Like, you can touch it and people could really read it. And now I'm really chuffed. I have to say, it's even better than I imagined. It really is.
And you said another phrase that I just want to pick up on, which I really like too, which is like find your way, because I think in a way, when you've had that 20 years experience, or 10, 15, whatever it might be, or more, I feel like you've earned your right to follow that way, and at least find it, and then ideally follow it too, because you've got an awful lot of experience there that's backing you up, and you should feel good about that. Finding your way, following your way at 20, it's a bit of a guesswork, scattergun approach, to be honest, but actually, particularly an introvert that may have been more reflective on their career and what they've gained and experienced, that is an incredibly strong resource to draw on, from which you can then find your way and then follow your way. And I think that should give most people real confidence when, like you, they're faced, and me as well, faced with redundancy. Instead of it being a terrifying experience, actually, at various points in your life, it might be the best opportunity you ever had to build the life that you really want. And that's a wonderful experience, wonderful opportunity. It opens up a whole new chapter of a life, which, I think it's just so exciting. I wish you so much success with this book. I think it's absolutely needed. And I love how you've turned your experience into a business that is going to really help other people. I think, you can't ask more for a life to be really, really useful like that, and inspire and support and give people hope, I think, as well. So I wish you lots and lots of luck with it.
Thank you. Yeah, really excited to share it with the world now, really. So yeah, the book is launched 21st of May. So I think this will be out just after the launch. So yeah, we can share with people where they can find the book. And just intrigued, if listeners have any feedback, thoughts about the book, we'd love to hear that, really. Just keen that the book has a nice impact, and just curious to see where it all goes.
Lovely. Me too. Fantastic. Thanks so much for joining me today, Sarah. That's brilliant.
Thank you, Adam. Thanks so much.